Here is Mike Pompeo, I think, reiterating what Tom Cotton says, too, right? Here's Mike Pompeo saying, basically threatening the U.S., the Iran with war. It's unclear who was involved in the explosions that hit tankers the other day in the Gulf of Oman. But here's Mike Pompeo. Despite the slight discrepancy in what was used and how sure they were about this stuff, that's how it worked with weapons of mass destruction. We know there's weapons of mass destruction there. Well, it turns out they lied because they couldn't know. They just felt that if we said, we think there's weapons of mass destruction there, we sort of feel like there should be, they probably couldn't have gotten the war they wanted. Here's Mike Pompeo saying the U.S. will strike Iran if we need to protect international crude oil from, let's say, attack.
To help us do that.
So when you talk about military response, you're talking about that, keeping the waterways open. You are not at this point talking about a strike on Iran.
Oh, goodness. President Trump has said very clearly he doesn't want to go to war. At the same time, we've made very clear that
do you have the legal authorization for a strike on Iran?
We always have the authorization to defend American interests. Remember, they now have attacked U.S. aircraft. On June 6th, there was a missile fired from Yemen that we assess had Iranian assistance that took down an MQ-9 aircraft. These are attacks on fundamental international norms and now on American interests, and we always have the right to defend our country.
But I ask you because there are questions about whether the existing authorization for use of military force, the AUMF, would actually include a strike on Iran.
Sure.
Are you confident that you could go and not have to ask Congress for permission to take action?
Morgan, I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but the American people should be very confident the actions that the United States takes under President Trump will always be lawful, always consistent with our Constitution, and we will always do the hard task it takes to protect American interests wherever they are.
But do you need Congress's permission?
To do what, Margaret? I mean, I don't know how to answer the question in the abstract. Permission.
Well, you said a range of options are being looked at.
Yes,
so.
Every option we look at will be fully lawful.
Oh, okay. I feel better. Understand the game that Pompeo's taking here right now, right? He's saying to the president, and he was saying that to the president, I get it. You don't want a war. We're going to keep ourselves out of war. Of course, we've got to be strong. You don't want me going on there and sounding weak. And the idea is, bit by bit, we provoke. Maybe they retaliate. Maybe they don't. If they don't, then we make it as if they've retaliated, and then we provoke a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, oops, somebody forgot to leave the emergency brake and we parked on a hill. And there goes the car rolling down the hill. Who's going to stop it? Shoot, we forgot to keep the doors unlocked and we can't run in and open up the door and stop the car. Wonder if there's any support in the Senate for the future Donald Trump for the new version of Donald Trump in 2024 in the event that the old one conks out in 2020. Let's check. Because Tom Cotton was on, what was this? Face the Nation.
Defined as a hawk on Iran. You see these recent attacks. These are commercial vessels, not military installations. What kind of response is warranted?
Well, Iran for 40 years has engaged in this kind of attacks, going back to the 1980s. In fact, Ronald Reagan had to reflag a lot of vessels going through the Persian Gulf and ultimately take military action against Iran in 1988. These unprovoked attacks on commercial shipping warrant a retaliatory military strike.
You're comparing the tanker war in the 80s to now and saying that that's the kind of military response you want to see?
We can make a military response in a time and in a manner of our choosing, but yes, unprovoked attacks on commercial shipping warrant a retaliatory military strike against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
A retaliatory strike. When we had Secretary Pompeo on just a few moments ago, he said the U.S. always has the authorization to defend American interests. As someone who sits in Congress, do you believe that he can act, the administration can act, without coming to Congress first?
Yes, Margaret. Going back to President Washington and all the way down to President Trump, the fastest way to get the fire and fury of the U.S. military unleashed on you is to interfere with the freedom of navigation on the open seas and in the air. That's exactly what Iran is doing, and one of the world's most important strategic choke points.
First of all, is this really, I mean, what is not United States interests? These are not U.S. boats. Japan hasn't, as far as I know, has not made some declaration that they want us to attack, nor has Norway. What is not a U.S. interest if we can decide unilaterally to bomb in this instance? He has got it right from George Washington all the way down to Donald Trump. But the idea that he's calling for a military strike based on this event that's already happened.
Like, there's a reason
they want a war, folks. They want a war. This is not a drill.
The president has the authorization to act to defend American interests. Certainly, it would be in keeping with what President Obama did unwisely in Libya in 2011 in launching a weeks-long campaign to overthrow the government there. What I'm talking about is not like what we've seen in Iraq for the last 16 years or Afghanistan for the last 18 years, but retaliatory military strikes against Iran that make it clear we will not tolerate any kind of attacks on commercial shipping on the open seas.
Boy, does he want a war. Boy, does he want a war. Nuts.